For some unknown reason to you and your partner, you've ended up with a load of kids and you need a 7-seater. And is the Dacia, or there's a multitude of different ways to pronounce it, it's probably not Dacia as we call it in Ireland. Will the Jogger, which is a 7-seater, do the job? I'll help you find out here on Nobby on Cars. If you get the car in extreme trim, on the top spec, which this one is, it's reasonably nice looking. It has the new Dacia front end with the new logo. You're going to get black alloy wheels, the modular roof rails, which can be really usefully transformed in a different layout, and you can put all kinds of things on it to fit extra stuff, because if you do have the third row full of humans, you still need somewhere to put all your luggage. Not sure how I feel about this weird kind of, I don't know, safari looking strip on the car. I do like the bronze mirror housing though. And the back just has a very straight down design, giving you as much space in the rear as humanly possible. So darker colours, nice kind of sleek but rugged look about the vehicle, especially in the black alloys. Just to give you a look then, if you're using the extra row of seats, what is the boot like with them up? First thing to note is I've been able to put the parcel shelf just across the back of the car, which is handy because sometimes they don't fit. That's the boot space with the third row up. Not exactly huge, it has to be said. If you're not using these rear seats, however, unlike a lot of 7-seaters, you can fully remove these from the car, and that is very helpful. You can drop the middle bench also, obviously, but it doesn't quite go fully flat. That should give you a good idea of how much rear legroom is in the third row of the Jogger. You can fit adults. I've been in these on holidays in the back of one as a taxi. It's not in abundance, but it's doable for shorter journeys. And you can also fully lift that middle row up to help getting access into the back. And now that I'm at the rear seats, it's probably a good time to mention the NCAP rating. It just received 1 star back in 2021, which is not ideal for a family car. Now, as with any vehicle, you can go on to the NCAP website, you can download the report and you can see specifically where it lost points. And sometimes I feel it's a little unfair on Dacia because they don't have a lot of GSR2 settings, or in the past didn't, and that would also cost them points, and that would mean that maybe something like frontal collision avoidance, which is a nice to have but isn't totally necessary, it pushes up the price of the car to have all these GSR2 aids on the vehicle. But then you want a cheaper car and an affordable car, and that kind of goes in the face of what Dacia is meant to be. That said, a 1-star NCAP safety rating is pretty poor, and actually some of the reasons for this are the placement of seats for children. So if you are buying one of these for your family, the outer 2 seats on the middle row are the best positions for child seats in terms of crash safety. So as I said, if you're considering this car, have a look at the report, download it and make up your own mind. Something that will drive you mad if you're constantly letting people into the back here, the seat belt gets caught. You close this, it won't lock into place, so you're constantly pulling this out to close that, and then it's secure. Kids do love these tray tables for longer journeys, however. The door bins have lots of space in the rear and they're completely washable. You sit a bit higher than the driver and passenger, so you're a little bit looking down on them. Good headspace in general. There's a light back here, a 12 volt for charging a tablet slowly. It would be nice to see, a bit more family orientated charging in the back of the car. Tray tables, you could call them family orientated. There's little grooves on them that actually hold in a tablet and stop it generally falling and flopping all over the place. Everything is hard, touch plastics, and anyone I've brought around in the car this week, they comment on that, and I mention the price and they go, oh, okay, yeah, that's interesting. There's nice rubber mats instead of carpet in here, again, just kid friendly, and the seats they feel kind of cheap. You expect this to feel like Alcantara, and then it's not. You get 2 Isofix seat points on the outer 2 seats and none in the rear. And again, back to that NCAP, that is definitely not a place you should put infants in small car seats. Don't expect anything majorly fancy up front of the Jogger, and you will get along just fine. That said, okay, there's wireless CarPlay, you get a reversing camera, you can buy those clip-on phone holders, it even has a USB-A charging port up here for you to charge your device. You've got a terrain mode, just a shortcut button down here beside another USB charger. The hybrid version gets the automatic. This is the hybrid 145. There's now, time has moved on, there's the 155, the new Bigster that I recently reviewed on the channel. You get an armrest, you get shortcut buttons to cruise control. It's not adaptive cruise control, so you've got to still keep your own distance between you and the car in front, but it's all right. The display is out of Renault's from a few years ago, including a battery gauge to tell you how often you're in battery mode and EV mode, and pleasantly surprised, even at 100 kilometers an hour on the M50, this thing will be in EV mode if it has enough charge in the battery. So it's actually really fuel efficient. It hasn't budged from 5 litres per 100 kilometers all week, and it's a tiny lithium-ion battery that just basically gets topped up by the petrol engine. As soon as it has enough charge, it runs on EV, and then when it depletes a bit, the petrol engine will kick in, top up again, and it just keeps repeating the cycle over and over again. And there's some buttons to bring you to climate control. So once you've got your nav connected up with your CarPlay, it feels very, very modern because you have all the usual CarPlay bits built into this screen. And there's blind spot on this extreme version of the car. So despite the NCAP 1-star safety rating, there's still quite a bit of safety stuff in terms of driver assistance. Essential, Expression and Extreme are the 3 different trim options in the car. So the TCE 110 right up to this 145, which is €32,000. So the starting price is €25,000. And you can imagine the entry level is quite a bit more basic, especially in terms of, you know, mirror housings, alloy wheels and things like that. There isn't a diesel option in the Jogger, just like the upcoming Bigster, and a lot of you have commented about that, saying they're missing a trick there. I know, I hear you. If you like the colour of this car, by the way, it's called Cedar Green. Yes, quite regal. And in terms of getting this car around, it's 4,547 millimeters long. So it is a long car. It's a 7-seater. Dacia have also included a reversing camera on this car. It's quite grainy at night time. It's fine during the day. I mean, you will make out where you're going in the dark. It quickly gets poor compared to many other brands on the market today. And then to drive it, I've had this with 6 people on board, and yes, you can feel the extra weight. Of course you can. The petrol engine was kicking in more. So if you're going to use this as a taxi, probably talk to other taxi drivers as well. Don't just take my word for it. But yeah, depending on how many passengers you have, the fuel efficiency will vary, shall we say. But when you're not fully laden with people, it really is in EV mode a huge amount of the time. As I said, it hasn't budged from 5.2 litres per 100 kilometres this week. The fuel gauge is a quarter used after nearly a week of driving. And when you're using that EV mode and it's in hybrid, it's actually quite nippy and it pulls away from a stop very quickly also. It's also been pretty comfortable in terms of just ride. Like, it's not too hard, it's not too soft, but it's soft enough that, I mean, I'm driving over some cat's eyes now in the middle of the road here, and you can feel it in the vehicle, but it's not especially harsh. I know cat's eyes are not the biggest test here, but it's all I've got right now. But anyway, just, you know, from memory, from driving this all week, I can tell you that it hasn't been an uncomfortable car to be driving around in. Not quite sure, again, a lot of you have asked why the Bigster isn't a 7-seater. I mean, there's potential for it. I suppose one of the reasons they have decided not to for now is this car. It'll hurt Jogger sales because the Bigster is another step up. It feels that little bit nicer. It looks that little bit nicer. So probably self-preservation for this model of car. which is doing quite well. And something else that they mentioned at the launch of the Bigster, and you can watch my review of that car if you haven't seen it yet, just click that link, is they have a customer base of about 9 million people. They are no frills, and they're unapologetic about it, but it is a fine car to get around in, and if your budget doesn't stretch to something huge and you do need the extra seats, I can totally see why you'd want one of these cars. So just go ahead and buy it if you need a large 7-seater and you don't want to spend an arm and a leg. Kids cost you that anyway. A very capable car for carrying quite a few people. As I often say, when you see taxi drivers using vehicles like this, it's usually a good sign. It's been a good workhorse for me this week. It's carried everyone I needed it to carry. It's been fuel efficient. But the features I mentioned and the end cap I mentioned earlier on in the video are something to consider at least. But then it will still come down to price. And affordable 7-seaters are fairly thin on the ground. And as affordability goes, it's going to be hard to beat the Jogger. Thanks for watching. I'll talk to you in the next one.